The red dust of Mars swirled around the mining facility as Jack Thompson checked the drilling readings one last time before his shift ended. The Earth-Mars Mining Corporation's Site 7 had been operational for just 6 months, but they were already exceeding all production targets. Humanity's first major off-world mining operation was proving to be a huge success. What Jack didn't know was that high above the Martian atmosphere, the first ships of the Galactic Federation were watching. Their advanced scanners focused on the various human installations scattered across the red planet's surface. "These readings cannot be correct," said Commander First Grade Ulox, his metallic scales reflecting the soft blue light of the bridge. "The energy signatures from these installations are too high for simple resource extraction." His second-in-command, Officer Trell, moved closer to examine the holographic display. "The structures are heavily reinforced. Look at these power readings. They must be weapon installations disguised as mining operations." They were wrong, of course. The high-energy readings came from the powerful drilling equipment needed to break through Mars' tough outer crust. The reinforced structures were simply protection against dust storms and radiation. But the Federation's military doctrine was clear. Any potential threat must be eliminated before it could grow stronger. "Send the report to High Command," Ulox ordered. "Mark it as urgent. Potential hostile species with planetary military installations." The response came faster than expected. High Command authorized immediate military action against all human structures on Mars. They believed a quick strike would prevent Earth from becoming a future threat to galactic peace. They had no idea they were about to wake a sleeping giant. The first plasma strikes hit Site 7 during the night shift. Jack was in the mess hall when the entire building shook. Warning sirens blared as sections of the facility began losing pressure. Through the reinforced windows, he saw green beams of energy cutting through other buildings like butter. "Everyone to the emergency bunkers." Site Director Miller's voice boomed through the speakers. The mining crew had drilled these procedures monthly, but no one had ever thought they'd need them for an alien attack. The humans didn't panic. Instead, they acted with a calm efficiency that would later confuse their attackers. Within minutes, emergency protocols were activated. Mining machines were quickly converted to clear rubble. Maintenance tools became weapons. The facility's backup power systems, designed to withstand dust storms, kept life support running. In orbit, Commander Ulox watched with growing concern. Why aren't they running? Their structures are being destroyed, but they're organizing defensive positions. "Sir," Officer Trell reported, "we're detecting multiple underground signatures. They're using their mining tunnels as shelter, and they're moving through them." Coordinating. The Federation forces had expected mass panic and surrender. Instead, they watched as humans used their knowledge of the terrain and their equipment in ways the aliens hadn't thought possible. Mining lasers, designed to cut through rock, were turned skyward. While not powerful enough to damage the ships, they forced the attackers to maintain a higher orbit. When the first Federation ground forces landed, expecting to find scattered survivors, they instead met organized resistance. Humans in environmental suits used mining explosives as weapons. Loading machines became barricades. Every piece of equipment seemed to serve a dual purpose. "These cannot be primitives," Ulox muttered as he watched his troops fall back from yet another mining site. The report said they had only achieved basic spaceflight. How are they adapting so quickly? The answer was simple, though it would take the Federation years to understand it. Humans had been preparing for disaster scenarios since they first walked on Mars. Every procedure, every piece of equipment, every structure was designed with multiple uses in mind. Not because they expected alien attacks, but because survival on Mars demanded adaptability. As the first day of combat ended, Earth received the distress calls from Mars. The response was immediate and unified. For the first time in human history, all nations agreed on a single course of action. The Federation had expected to eliminate a potential threat. Instead, they had given humanity's quarreling nations something they'd never had before: a common enemy. The war had begun, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy why they would soon become known as the deadliest killers in space. The Federation's Grand Admiral Thax stood before the holographic display, his 4 eyes narrowing at the battle reports from Mars. 3 weeks had passed since their initial strike, and what should have been a simple preventive operation had turned into a military nightmare. "Impossible," he muttered, reviewing the latest casualty figures. "How did primitive humans capture one of our destroyer-class vessels?" The answer came in the form of a battle recording. The human attack had been deceptively simple, yet brilliant in its execution. They had used their mining ships, loaded with ore, to appear as if they were fleeing. The Federation destroyer pursued them into a debris field, remnants of the initial battles. What the alien crew didn't realize was that the debris field was a trap. Hidden among the floating wreckage were space-suited humans, using nothing more than modified mining tools and magnetic grapples. While the destroyer focused on the fleeing ships, these humans silently attached themselves to the vessel's hull. They cut their way in through maintenance ports, something Federation engineers had never considered as a security risk. They entered through maintenance access. Thax asked in disbelief. "That's meant for repair drones. No sentient species would be desperate enough to try entering through such small spaces in the vacuum of space." But humans had centuries of experience with spacewalks and emergency repairs. To them, it was dangerous but achievable. The Federation's arrogance had never considered that a primitive species would attempt such a tactic. On Earth, the unified human military command was learning fast. Every captured piece of alien technology was immediately studied and reverse-engineered. Humanity's greatest advantage was becoming clear. They didn't think like the Federation. "Their technology is advanced," General Rodriguez told the Emergency UN Council, "but their thinking is rigid. They expect enemies to fight according to their rules of warfare. We don't play by those rules because we don't even know them." The Federation's strategic computers couldn't predict human actions because humans often made choices that seemed illogical to alien minds. When Federation forces cut off supply lines to a human base, the humans ate emergency rations and kept fighting. When their weapons ran low on power, they resorted to kinetic weapons, simple guns and explosives that the Federation had considered obsolete centuries ago. A group of human soldiers demonstrated this perfectly during the Battle of Phobos. When their position was surrounded by Federation forces, they didn't surrender as expected. Instead, they turned off their gravity generators and used fire extinguishers as makeshift thrusters to outmaneuver the alien troops in zero gravity. "Sir," a Federation analyst reported to Admiral Thax, "I've been studying their historical records. These humans, they've been fighting wars against themselves for thousands of years. They've developed combat techniques we never imagined because we've had unified galactic peace for centuries." The analyst pulled up images from human history: soldiers fighting in trenches, guerrilla warfare in jungles, urban combat in ruined cities. Every environment, every situation, they've already fought there. Against themselves, they've learned to use anything as a weapon. This revelation sent shockwaves through the Federation military command. Their soldiers were trained to fight with advanced technology. Humans, on the other hand, were adaptable. They could fight with sticks and stones if necessary, and win. The captured destroyer was the final proof. Human engineers had already begun incorporating their own technology into the alien ship. They didn't fully understand the advanced systems, but they understood enough to make it work their way. They replaced complex plasma controls with simple manual switches. They added physical backup systems where the Federation had only digital ones. "They're not just using our technology," Thax realized with growing dread. "They're making it more dangerous by making it simpler." As the first month of war came to an end, the Federation's military analysts reached a disturbing conclusion. The more they tried to outthink humans, the more humans surprised them with solutions so simple they seemed brilliant. Humanity wasn't fighting a sophisticated war. They were fighting to survive. And that made them more dangerous than any advanced civilization the Federation had ever encountered. In the depths of the Federation's Central Military Archive, Intelligence Officer Kex felt a chill run through his spine as he reviewed Earth's historical records. His team had been tasked with understanding human warfare, but what they discovered was far more terrifying than anyone had expected. "Play historical file 7749, he commanded. The holographic display flickered to life, showing scenes from human conflicts across the centuries. Each image seemed more brutal than the last. "These creatures," his assistant remarked, "they fought in every possible condition. Desert warfare, Arctic combat, underwater battles, mountain sieges. They even fought in chemical wastelands of their own making." Kex watched as the images continued. Humans fighting with sophisticated weapons, then with basic firearms, then with medieval weapons, and even with sharpened sticks. Each era showed the same determination, the same deadly efficiency. "Look at this," he said, pausing on a particular scene. During something they called World War II, their soldiers used simple metal tools called shovels as both digging implements and close combat weapons. They call it a battlefield multi-tool. The more they studied, the more disturbing the patterns became. Humans had an uncanny ability to turn anything into a weapon. Construction tools became instruments of war. Civilian vehicles were converted into military transports. Even cooking ingredients could be transformed into explosives. A report landed on Kex's desk from the front lines. A small human force had destroyed an advanced Federation tank using nothing but common industrial chemicals in glass bottles. They called them Molotov cocktails, a primitive but effective weapon that dated back centuries in their history. "Sir," one of the analysts called out, "you need to see this psychological assessment." The document detailed something unprecedented in galactic warfare. Most species became less effective in combat as their fear increased. Humans, however, often became more dangerous when frightened. Their fight-or-flight response had evolved to heavily favor fight. According to these records, Kex read aloud, "Humans have a concept called cornered rat syndrome. When trapped, instead of surrendering, they become more aggressive and unpredictable. The Federation's combat simulators couldn't properly calculate human behavior because their base assumptions were wrong. They expected rational decisions based on survival probability. Humans, instead, would often choose certain death if it meant taking their enemies with them." As Kex dug deeper into Earth's military history, he discovered accounts of small human forces defeating vastly superior enemies through sheer determination and creative thinking. They called it asymmetric warfare, a concept that was alien to the Federation's ordered military doctrine. "Most disturbing," he wrote in his report, "is their ability to learn and adapt during combat. Federation troops are experiencing increasing casualties as humans quickly learn to counter our advanced technology with surprisingly simple solutions." A prime example came from a recent skirmish. Federation soldiers had used their energy shields to block human projectile weapons. The humans responded by throwing sand and small rocks at the shields. The particles weren't dangerous, but they created a visual screen that blocked the Federation troops' sight. Then the humans attacked from unexpected angles, while their enemies were effectively blinded. They're not just primitive, Kex realized. They're primitive by choice. They maintain these basic combat skills alongside their advanced technology. It makes them unpredictable. The final section of his report included a chilling discovery. Humans had a form of entertainment called action movies, where they imagined various combat scenarios, including alien invasions. They had been mentally preparing for this kind of war for generations through their fiction. Recommendation, Kex wrote with trembling hands, "All Federation forces should be warned. Humans are not simply another primitive species discovering spaceflight. They are the product of millions of years of evolution as pursuit predators, combined with thousands of years of constant warfare. They don't just fight, they have turned fighting into an art form." As he finished his report, another bulletin arrived from the front lines. A human resistance group had successfully raided a Federation armory using weapons made from mining tools and construction equipment. They had even left a message painted on the wall: adapt, improvise, overcome. Kex added one final note to his report: the greatest danger of humans is not their technology or their strength. It's their endless creativity in finding new ways to fight. The massive domes of Luna Base Alpha gleamed under Earth's light as Federation warships moved into position around the moon. Commander Rex of the Federation blockade fleet felt confident. His mission was simple: force the human lunar colony to surrender by cutting off their supplies. They have resources for 1 month at most, he reported to High Command. No species can survive longer than that in these conditions. He didn't know that humans had been preparing for lunar disasters since they first established the base. Every system had backups, every backup had backups, and every colonist knew how to improvise when all else failed. Inside the base, Colonel Tom Baker gathered his people in the main hydroponics bay. "They think they can starve us out," he announced to the assembled colonists. "Let's show them how wrong they are." The first week of the siege went as expected. The humans appeared to be conserving resources, minimizing power usage, and behaving exactly as Federation tactical computers predicted. But by the second week, strange things began happening. "Sir," a Federation sensor operator called out, "we're detecting unusual activity in the human waste recycling sectors." What the aliens didn't understand was that human colonists were converting their sewage treatment facilities into additional hydroponics bays. They were growing food in their own processed waste, a concept that disgusted the Federation observers but kept the humans fed. The base's mining equipment, originally designed to extract ice from lunar craters, was modified to drill new emergency tunnels. The humans expanded their living space underground, making it harder for the Federation to monitor their activities. "These readings make no sense," Rex muttered as he studied the power consumption data. The base should have been running out of energy, but somehow they were maintaining stable levels. The answer would have horrified him. The colonists had taken apart their sports exercise equipment. The metal frames became structural supports, while the treadmills and cycling machines were converted into human-powered generators. Hundreds of colonists took turns exercising in shifts, literally converting their physical effort into electricity. By the third week, the Federation troops watching the base began reporting strange noises coming through their ship's hulls. Regular, rhythmic tapping that seemed to follow no pattern they could decipher. "It's Morse code," a human prisoner later explained, laughing. "They're telling jokes to each other through the moon's surface using mining vibration equipment, keeping morale up." The Federation's frustration grew as the humans not only survived but seemed to be thriving. They had expected to find desperate survivors. Instead, they found a community that treated the siege as just another engineering problem to solve. Then came the counterattack. The Federation's first warning was a series of small explosions across the lunar surface. The humans had taken their garbage, a month's worth of carefully saved waste materials, packed it into containers with oxygen, and turned it into primitive bombs. The debris created a field of shrapnel that forced Federation ships to move to higher orbits. "Impossible," Rex shouted as reports came in. "They're attacking us with their trash." But that was just the beginning. The humans had spent weeks observing Federation patrol patterns. They noticed that the alien ships avoided certain areas of high lunar dust, so they modified their mining mass drivers, normally used to launch ore containers, to throw dust clouds into space. Federation ships found their sensors blinded by clouds of electrostatically charged moon dust. Their energy shields could stop missiles, but were useless against microscopic particles that clogged their thermal radiators. Then came the masterstroke. Using knowledge gained from their captured destroyer, the humans figured out the Federation's shield frequencies. They modified their communication arrays to broadcast on exactly those frequencies, creating interference that weakened sections of the shields. They turned their entire base into a weapon. Rex realized with growing horror. Every system, every piece of equipment, every bit of waste material had been repurposed for defense or attack. As his ships struggled to maintain their blockade positions, Rex received a transmission from the human colonel. "We can keep this up for months. Can you?" The message was clear. The Federation's mighty blockade fleet was being fought to a standstill by humans using mining tools, exercise equipment, and garbage. In his final report to High Command, Rex wrote, "They don't just survive in hostile environments. They turn those environments into weapons against their enemies." Chief Psychologist Vex of the Federation Military Mental Health Division stared at his terminal, reviewing thousands of reports from soldiers who had faced humans in combat. His four hands trembled as he compiled his findings into what would become the most disturbing military psychology report in Federation history. Play personal log. Federation Marine Unit 447, he commanded. A holographic recording appeared, showing a battle-scarred soldier whose scales had turned pale with stress. "The humans, they don't break." The soldier's voice shook. "We destroyed their position. We cut off their retreat. We had them surrounded. But they smiled. They actually smiled at us before counterattacking." Vex added another note to his report. "Unlike any known species, humans show increased combat effectiveness when placed in desperate situations. They refer to this as having nothing left to lose." The evidence was overwhelming. Federation combat psychiatrists had documented hundreds of cases of what they were calling human paranoia syndrome among their troops. Soldiers began seeing threats everywhere because, with humans, anything could be a threat. Even their civilians. Read another soldier's report. "We captured a human food preparation specialist, a chef, during a raid. He disabled 2 of our warriors with nothing but cooking ingredients and hot oil." Vex's research revealed something that terrified Federation Military Command. Humans had evolved as pursuit predators, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. This patience translated into modern warfare in horrifying ways. "They wait," wrote one squad leader. "They watch. They learn our patterns. Then they strike at the worst possible moment. My soldiers are afraid to establish any routines because the humans will notice and exploit them." The psychological impact was devastating. Federation troops began reporting sleep disorders. They couldn't rest because humans might attack at any time. They couldn't rely on their superior technology because humans would find simple ways to counter it. "Display combat footage M1192, Vex commanded. The hologram showed a Federation patrol encountering a wounded human soldier. Following standard procedure, they approached to offer medical assistance. The human pretended to be more injured than they were, drew the patrol close, then detonated hidden explosives. "They use our own empathy against us," Vex noted. "Our soldiers are now afraid to help injured humans, which only makes us feel worse about fighting them." Another disturbing pattern emerged from the combat reports. Federation soldiers were trained to fight with precision and efficiency. Humans fought with controlled chaos, using tactics that seemed suicidal but often proved effective. Subject 2247 interview. Vex called up another recording. A Federation officer appeared, looking haunted. "We had them trapped in an orbital station," the officer reported. "They depressurized entire sections of their own station, using the explosive decompression to throw debris at our ships. They sacrificed their own infrastructure to attack us." Who does that? Vex's report highlighted a crucial psychological difference. Federation species evolved through careful, calculated advancement. Humans evolved by surviving countless disasters and wars. They didn't just accept chaos. They thrived in it. "Most concerning," he wrote, "is their ability to maintain morale in impossible situations. They have a saying, 'Where there's a will, there's a way.' This mindset makes them virtually impossible to demoralize through conventional means." The report included numerous examples of human psychological warfare. They would leave messages for Federation troops to find, describing in detail how they had survived previous battles. They'd broadcasted recordings of their war songs, primitive but haunting melodies that spoke of victory against impossible odds. "They don't just want to defeat us," one soldier's testimony read. "They want us to know that they can defeat us at any time, in any way they choose." The uncertainty is maddening. Vex's final recommendation sent shockwaves through Federation command. Standard psychological warfare tactics are not just ineffective against humans, they are counterproductive. Attempts to break their will only strengthen their resolve. They have turned their own fear into a weapon, using it to fuel their determination rather than hinder it. He added one last note. The Federation faces a species that has mastered the art of turning disadvantages into advantages. They don't just fight with weapons, they fight with their minds, their will, and their unwavering determination to survive. This makes them more dangerous than any technologically advanced civilization we have ever encountered. The Federation battle cruiser Eternal Victory shuddered as another explosion rocked its hull. On the bridge, Fleet Commander Zax watched in disbelief as a small fleet of converted human cargo ships pressed their attack. "Status report," he demanded, his crystalline skin flickering with stress patterns. "Sir, the humans have modified their cargo containers into boarding pods," his tactical officer reported. They're deliberately ramming our ships." What the Federation forces couldn't understand was that these weren't military vessels. They were merchant ships crewed by civilian volunteers, humans who had chosen to fight not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to. The first boarding action caught the Federation completely off guard. Their combat simulations had never considered that an enemy would physically crash their ships into Federation vessels just to get troops aboard. It seemed insane, yet it was working. Multiple hull breaches. Alarms blared across the ship. Human forces detected in sections 7, 12, and 15. The Federation Marines moved to intercept, confident in their advanced armor and energy weapons. But what followed would haunt them forever. The humans had learned from previous encounters. They knew their projectile weapons struggled against Federation armor. Their solution? They brought simple tools instead. Plasma cutters meant for ship repair became weapons. Fire extinguishers were used to blind sensor systems. Even maintenance wrenches became devastating weapons in close combat. "They're in the walls," a Federation Marine screamed over the comm. "They're using the maintenance tunnels. They're everywhere." Federation soldiers, trained for organized combat in corridors, found themselves facing an enemy that ignored conventional military tactics. Humans crawled through air vents, cut through floor panels, and used the ship's own systems against its crew. A particularly terrifying moment came when the humans triggered the fire suppression system in one section. As the Federation troops switched to their armor's oxygen supply, the humans struck. They had modified their spacesuits to work in the oxygen-deprived environment, giving them the advantage. "Sir," the tactical officer's voice shook, "we've lost contact with decks 3 through 5. The humans are using our internal communication systems to broadcast. They're broadcasting the sounds of their combat." Through the ship's speakers came the echoes of battle, human war cries, the clash of metal on metal, and something Federation troops had never heard before: laughter. The humans were enjoying the fight. Commander Zax received reports from other ships in his fleet. The same scene was playing out across multiple vessels. Humans, despite their primitive technology, were proving nearly impossible to stop in close combat. "How do they keep fighting?" A Marine sergeant reported, his voice filled with fear. "We hit them with stun weapons. They keep coming. We break their bones. They use the broken limbs as weapons. What are these creatures?" The breaking point came during a battle in the main engine room. A squad of Federation Marines cornered a group of human soldiers. Standard doctrine said the humans should surrender, being outgunned and outnumbered. Instead, the humans smiled. Their leader pulled out a simple metal object, a wrench. "Ever wonder what happens when you loosen the right bolt in a fusion reactor?" he asked. The Federation squad retreated in terror. They had finally encountered something they couldn't comprehend. An enemy willing to risk everything, even their own lives, for victory. "All Federation ships," Commander Zax's voice trembled as he made the announcement, "initiate emergency separation protocols. Abandon all compromised decks. I repeat, abandon all decks with human presence. But it was too late. The humans had learned too much about Federation ship systems. They had taken control of critical sections, locked down emergency hatches, and trapped Federation crews in their own vessels. In his final transmission to Federation High Command, Commander Zax wrote, "These humans, they don't just defeat us. They make us defeat ourselves. Our technology, our training, our logic, they turn it all into a weakness. We can't beat an enemy who sees defeat as just another problem to solve." The battle marked a turning point in the war. For the first time in Federation history, an entire battle group surrendered to a numerically inferior force. The humans had proven that determination and adaptability could overcome any technological advantage. More importantly, they had shown the galaxy something terrifying. The more desperate their situation became, the more dangerous humans were. The Grand Hall of the Federation High Command fell silent as Admiral Supreme Ixal read the latest reports. In his centuries of service, he had never seen anything like this. An entire Federation battle fleet refusing direct orders to engage the enemy. "Play the transmission," he commanded, his voice heavy with defeat. The holographic display showed Captain Nex of the 7th Attack Squadron, one of their most decorated officers. "High Command, we cannot follow these orders. My crews refuse to face human forces directly. They'd rather face execution for desertion." Similar reports flooded in from across the front lines. Federation soldiers were developing severe psychological trauma just from the possibility of facing humans in combat. Medical bays were overwhelmed with cases of human paranoia syndrome. "Show me the latest incident report," Ixal ordered. The footage displayed a Federation heavy cruiser encountering a small human vessel. Instead of engaging as ordered, the cruiser's crew initiated an emergency warp jump, abandoning their patrol route. Their only explanation: better court-martial than human combat. In another sector, an entire Federation battalion surrendered to a human force 1/10 their size. When questioned, the battalion commander simply said, "They were using mining tools as weapons again. We've seen what happens next." The Intelligence Division's latest assessment appeared on Ixal's screen. Human military adaptation rate exceeding all projections. They are now successfully reverse engineering our technology while maintaining their unpredictable combat methods. Estimated time until they achieve technological parity: 3 years. But what truly forced the Federation's hand was the spread of human tactical innovations. Other species in the galaxy were watching, learning. Some had already begun adopting human-style warfare methods. "They're changing the very nature of galactic combat," Ixal's strategic advisor warned. "The longer this war continues, the more the humans teach others to fight like them." The final straw came during the Battle of Proxima Station. A Federation fleet encountered a human space station under construction. Scans showed it was largely incomplete, with minimal defenses. "Surely we can defeat an unfinished station," the fleet commander had transmitted. Those were his last words before the humans revealed their trap. The incomplete sections of the station were actually filled with industrial tools and construction equipment, all modified into weapons. Construction robots became combat drones. Welding lasers became point defense weapons. Even loose construction materials became deadly projectiles in the zero-gravity environment. The entire Federation fleet was disabled without the humans firing a single conventional weapon. In the Grand Hall, Admiral Supreme Ixal made the hardest decision of his career. "Begin peace negotiations," he ordered, "and prepare the Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha." Protocol 7 Alpha was something unprecedented in Federation history, a formal recognition of a species as too dangerous to fight. It would place humanity in a special diplomatic category, requiring peaceful negotiation in all future conflicts. The human diplomatic team arrived at Federation headquarters in a ship that perfectly symbolized their nature, an old cargo vessel modified with salvaged Federation technology. Their message was simple but profound. "We don't want to rule the galaxy," the human ambassador stated. "We just want to be left alone. But if anyone threatens our survival again, we will respond with everything we have." To demonstrate their point, They presented evidence of human preparations for prolonged warfare, cargo ships being converted to carriers, mining colonies becoming fortresses, and civilian tools being stockpiled for potential military use. The peace treaty was signed within a day. Its terms were straightforward. Humanity would be recognized as a sovereign species, free to develop without Federation interference. In return, humans would share their unique perspective on emergency preparedness and survival techniques, but not their military innovations. As the human delegates departed, Admiral Ixel added one final entry to the Federation's combat database. Warning to all Federation forces: humans are classified as extreme risk level species. Their designation as primitive or technologically inferior is their greatest deception. They do not think like other races. They do not fight like other races. Every human is potentially a combatant. Every tool is potentially a weapon. And every defeat is just a prelude to their counterattack. Final assessment. In their language, there is a saying: necessity is the mother of invention. We learned too late that making survival a necessity for humans only makes them stronger. The galaxy must never forget this lesson. The most dangerous species isn't the one with the most advanced weapons, but the one that can turn anything into a weapon.